Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Draft Outlook. I'm your host, Joseph Potter, and today we are Let's Playing as the San Francisco 49ers NFL front office using the FanSpeak board. But first, before we get to this, my colleagues Andrew Kermish and Chris Ransom are going to help me go through some weekly notes. And we're going to start off with a bang here. Chris, Paxton Lynch will be the Broncos franchise quarterback. True or false?
No. False. They can release him in 2019 without getting a cap penalty, and next year's basically his window of opportunity. If he doesn't deliver at this point or at next year, they can release him in 2019, and they will not be penalized against the salary cap for it. And this also applies to Mahomes' contract in 2020, and it's something Leigh Steinberg deserves a lot of credit for, because he made it so that each of the teams can keep the player for up to 3 years, and then if they don't like the deal, they can opt out, and if they love the prospect, they can give him a fifth-year option. So I credit Steinberg a lot for making it flexible for teams to operate the rookie deals like that.
And Paxton Lynch is expected to start within the next 3 weeks for the Denver Broncos, so keep an eye out for that. Kerm, Josh Gordon says he wants to be the greatest receiver of all time in a recent media interview. Can he or can't he?
I'm going to say no. That's not even taking into account if he can keep on the field because of his vices. But
and that's the big question there.
Jerry Rice could get high and he would still be a better receiver than Josh Gordon, even at his age.
He's Jerry Rice, Chris. Now, Kerm, what were you going to say to finish up there?
I wouldn't say at his age Jerry Rice would be better than Josh Gordon, because his last few years wasn't all that great. But Josh Gordon, well, I hope he stays good now, and he's got all his vices worked out and can have a productive career. I don't think it's going to take a lot for a team to trust him to be a solid number one, to where he would get those monster games all the time.
Yeah, and for him, he's got all the natural athletic ability. It all comes down to talent. Now, Chris, Odell Beckham, Joe Thomas, Andrew Luck, Jameis Winston, countless others. Will the string of superstar injuries continue throughout the year?
Of course. It's something that happens every week in the NFL. We see a player get injured, and that's the thing, is if you want to win a fantasy league, you have to go without any of your star players getting injured. I mean, each of the bottom 4 teams in one league have had to deal with injuries. The person in last place lost Aaron Rodgers and Jameis Winston, and they tried to blackball me into 37 and 44. Kerm lost Carson Palmer. Taco Corp, or whatever the guy's name is, lost Odell Beckham, and other guys, last year's league champ, lost Luck, lost Ryan Tannehill. Really had a draft that looked good on paper, but the quarterbacks kept getting injured. So you have to avoid injuries if you want to win fantasy leagues. But that being said, the trend of superstars getting injured is going to continue. I mean, this is the NFL. Injuries happen all the time.
Kerm,
can I add on to Chris's statement about that last question?
Of course.
Well, I think injuries will continue because in this day and age, teams are not practicing as much, so the bodies are not used to those hard hits. Because back before this last CBA, you had hard hits every week in practices multiple times. Now you have 16 padded practices a year. Once the season starts, that's not enough for the body to get used to it and where it's ready to take those hard hits in games.
Yeah, that's a good point, Kerm. And not only with that, I'll add on, but they also shortened the lengths of some of the practices.
Yeah.
So that is also a thing, getting those muscles ready and tuned up. So there's also that. Now,
Yeah, you're not.
Kerm,
Yeah.
the next question, something that's been going around for the last couple days. Will Jerry Jones sue the NFL over Roger Goodell's contract extension?
Oh, that is interesting because he had the opportunity this summer to really derail his contract extension, but with the recent going on with the Ezekiel Elliott case, it seems he's really wanting to play hardball. Is he might just, but I don't know if he could get anywhere with it
Well, he did.
unless he's able to get enough owners to where the contract extension would not go through.
Well, he did hire a lawyer. Chris, do you know anything more about the lawyer he hired and the specifics
I don't
of
I
the
don't know
hiring?
about the lawyer he'd hired, but in order for this thing to be backed up, in order for Goodell to not be reelected when his contract runs out, Jerry Jones and Rob Kraft would both have to be on board, and they'd have to sway the other owners because those two owners have a majority of the revenue in the NFL. So their teams are worth the most money at the moment in terms of overall revenue. So if those two are on board, they can get the rest of the league on board. Then there should be no problem with Goodell getting removed.
Yeah,
That
but
being
Chris,
said, if Goodell gets a couple of Cowboys, maybe it's water under the bridge for Jerry Jones.
Something you got to take into account though, it seems Goodell as the Mars are in Goodell's corner the whole way through.
The Maras and the Rooneys are going to stand by Goodell no matter what. That's the thing.
Well, the Mars and the Roonies, you have to remember, they're the
NFL, like
two
Brian Louise
longest
said.
standing owners in the NFL simply because of their family ties. So they are going to protect whoever the commissioner is at that time.
Yeah, and about the attorney Jerry Jones hired is David Bowles, and he's the attorney that represented the NFL during the lockout in 2011.
Now, that is incredibly interesting because if he is going to represent Jerry Jones instead of the NFL, that could bring a bit of a problem for Roger Goodell. And finally, Chris, will the NFL players reach an agreement to end the protest? Will the NFL and the players reach an agreement to end the protest by this offseason?
No, this is just going to keep continuing.
Because there was talk that they were close to having an agreement to end the protest that would have had a month-long awareness drive nationwide and educational programs and so on and so forth. And because the Houston, Texas owner shot his mouth off, basically, that pretty much derailed the plan. And then they were going to meet with Colin Kaepernick, but Kaepernick wanted a mediator, according to reports, and the NFL shut it down immediately. They didn't want a mediator in those talks.
Yeah.
And is there no thoughts on either of those situations?
I just don't think Kaepernick's ever going to get a job in the NFL.
His lawyer said he would be signed by the end of the week. So my thought is that there's some talks with some teams in there. But
if I were Ted Thompson, I know Colin Kaepernick's favorite team growing up was the Green Bay Packers. If I were Ted Thompson, I'd just be like, screw it. Let's sign him for 8 games. We've got nothing to lose at this point.
Yeah, I think the same thing with the Cleveland Browns. It's like you're 0-8. Why the heck not? I would have said the same thing about San Francisco, but they traded for Garoppolo, which will definitely get into that here in a few minutes. So it's like, what about Indianapolis? I mean, I like Brissett, but, Kaepernick in his last year had like a 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio and was throwing it close to 60%. So, I mean, there are teams that beat him.
Yeah, but here's the deal. Kaepernick could have been paid handsomely this year on the last year of the deal that he signed in San Francisco, but he opted out of the deal because it seems now he's more about he wants to be known about all of this other stuff instead of being a player.
Well, the thing is, a lot of people say that and all this, that, and the other, but a lot of people don't understand that Colin Kaepernick is good for a community. He puts a ton of money into their schools, whatever community he's in.
Joey, you don't got. I know that because say.
Well, I said most people. You do enough research for me, you, and Chris combined. Okay.
No, I know that on a personal level because have you heard of Cam Taylor?
Cam Taylor.
Camp Taylor.
I believe I heard of it in passing.
Yeah, it's a camp for kids with extensive heart defects that he's helped at. My cousin, she was born with one. She's had to have major surgeries, and it's a miracle that they see is alive today. And she has been going to Camp Taylor for all her life, and one of my other cousins, her middle brother, volunteers there, and both him and his other brother do a charity car show for them. So I do know about what he's doing there, but it seems like a lot with his. All of this started when he started dating the girlfriend that he now has.
I was gonna say, if you said that he is dating a Kardashian, it was like that would explain everything.
It's the girlfriend that he now has. That seems when a lot of his social justice started.
Okay, well, at least it's not a Kardashian. If it was a Kardashian, he'd never be signed, even have a chance to be signed, no matter how many lawyers he got. His career would be over.
Yeah, and the Kardashians wore Dodger jerseys before Game 7 of the World Series. That explains why the Astros took a huge lead. The Kardashians are bad luck. They're like a dirty penny.
A dirty penny. Okay, we'll go with that. But it is time, ladies and gentlemen, for the moment you've all been waiting for. We are doing a Let's Play of...
Yeah, and I'll try to screen my picks whenever Joey asks me what we should do. So I'll try to show my picks as well as Joey's because let's just play the game and see what happens.
Yes, and we are going to be doing a Let's Play of the San Francisco 49ers, and I will be your general manager. Chris and Kerm will be making the argument for each player. Sometimes there are arguments, sometimes there aren't. As we saw last week, most of that went smooth, and in the second round of the Cleveland Browns, we had a nice 5-minute discussion. We will have 5 minutes to take each selection. There is no guarantee we will use all 5 minutes, but we do have them. And we will be doing 3 rounds. And then by the end of it, we will discuss the draft, discuss the draft, and see what happens. So let's begin as the San Francisco 49ers. And as you mentioned before, Chris, FanSpeak has updated to where San Francisco now has the #1 overall selection. As we know, they traded for Jimmy Garoppolo, which leaves them with several options.
It does. I'm looking at the quarterbacks. They scouted 5. They scouted Darnold. They scouted Rosen. They scouted Josh Allen. And my theory is they weren't impressed with any of those 3 quarterbacks, and that's what persuaded them to trade for Garoppolo. We may end up going Barkley again at 1 simply because if the Browns take – I think the Browns are going to take Baker Mayfield at 1 now. I really believe that by gut. In the new mock I made, Barkley's at 2 to the Niners and Mayfield's at 1 to the Browns. So I really believe that if the Browns get the number 1 pick, they're going to take Mayfield, and Saquon Barkley is probably who the Niners are going to take. I also like the idea of taking Bradley Chubb here because the Niners run a 43 defense, and Solomon Thomas is more of a run stuffer than a pass rusher. Also, George are also the 2 players, Dumerville and Aaron Lynch, are both in contract years, which is something we need to consider, Joey, because if Aaron Lynch and Dumerville are both in contract years and Barkley goes to the Browns at 1, the Niners basically have 2 choices. They can either take Chubb or they can trade down. And from what I heard from Tony Mario last night, 20 of the 31 GMs not on the 49ers expect San Francisco to move this pick. So this pick, 17 out of 31 GMs expect the Browns to move their pick from the Texans. 20 out of 31 expect the Niners to move this pick.
Kerm, what's your take?
I'm gonna go with what Walter said on his big board, his mock draft that he updated yesterday. With them trading for Garoppolo, they will not take a quarterback. So I think I would go with an edge rusher here.
Yeah, I'd go with Bradley Chubb. That's actually my pick as well because we took Saquon with the Browns, and with the 2 edge rushers in contract years, Aaron Lynch and Dumerville, let's take Bradley Chubb. Let's go with a defensive lineman in the draft for the 4th year in a row, and let's piss off 49ers fans.
No, Chris. I would go with Arden Key.
Arden Key doesn't fit the 43 system. He fits the 34 system better. And Chubb has more sacks this year, too.
So, guys, which one do you want?
Let's go with Chubb.
Kerm?
Because I thought that I hadn't looked at that again. I thought that LSU was in a 4-3. I had to go back and look at the tape.
Okay, but so are you in agreement with Chris, or do I need a tiebreaker?
Let's go with Chris. If LSU has been playing a 34, I thought it was a 4-3 when I was watching the game Saturday.
Who's a huge Ellis fan, told me that they switched to a 34 a few years ago when Arden Key first got there.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So for the number 1 overall pick, the San Francisco 49ers select edge rusher from North Carolina State, Bradley Chubb.
Okay, so I'm good with that then. Now, just for argument's sake, what would you go with going a running back there, or would you wait, or would you want to wait until the 2nd round for a running back?
Well, we don't even know what the board's going to look like when the Saints are on the clock here. So let's just wait that out and let's be patient.
Oh, that's interesting. Minka Fitzpatrick to the Browns at number 2 overall.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield's off the board. Nelson's off the board. I'm just clicking players that are off the board on my game. Derwin James is off the board. I'm guessing Rosen's off the board. McGlinchey's definitely off the board. Key's off the board. Barkley's off the board. Darnold's off the board. This isn't even rocket science at this point. Okorafor might still be there in round 2 as an offensive tackle. I'm guessing Bryce Love is off the board. Bryce Love, I'm not a fan of Billy Price. I have a 4th round grade on him, so
No, Bryce Love is still there, I believe.
Yeah, Bryce Love, if we can get Bryce Love in the 2nd round, that's huge because I actually have him graded ahead of Geis at the moment, and we need a running back. So if we can get Bryce Love in the 2nd, that's pretty much a no-brainer.
All right, here we go. Round 2 is begun. And Calvin Ridley goes 43 to Baltimore.
Yeah,
That's low.
Davenport got a Senior Bowl invite.
Yeah, he goes to Carolina at 56, I believe. Now, this is an interesting situation here. Bryce Love is available at number 65.
And we have 2 third-round picks, ours and the one from the Bears. I'm honestly leaning
Tony Brown is still there, cornerback from Alabama.
Hill is my number 2 corner in the entire draft. Can we see what running backs are on the board for a second? I'm pretty certain I want to go Holton Hill here because I've always felt like the 49ers have needed a number 1 corner, but let's see what's on the board here.
Running back, Ronald Jones II from
I'm
USC,
not a fan of
Damian
Ronald
Harris.
Jones. I think he lacks the vision and the blocking to be an effective running back, but Bryce Love is there, Chubb is there, Myles Gaskin is there. So, yeah, we have the luxury to play it out and wait for our running back with the Bears pick even. I'm going to say we go Holton Hill here because I feel like the 49ers lack a number 1 and a number 2 corner. Weatherspoon can develop into a number 2 corner, but Holton Hill is a number 1 corner. He kept both James Washington and Alan Lazard to under 100 yards, but he got dismissed from the team. That's why he's fallen a little bit on boards, but I still think he's one of the better players on the board at this point.
Yeah, now the question is, will he fall to the 3rd round?
I don't think he'll fall that far. He has the same body as Trumaine Johnson on the Rams, and he covers like Marcus Peters. I don't think a player with that type of skill set's going to fall to the 3rd round. So I say we pull the trigger and we get Holton Hill here.
So what made the player be dismissed from his team?
That's what I would like to know as well. Why did he get dismissed? But
undisclosed.
I'm looking that up right now myself.
Yeah, we've got 2 minutes and 25 seconds to make the pick.
I don't think it's going to even affect his stock at all because remember, Marcus Peters got suspended a few years ago. He still went number 18 to the Chiefs. I actually have Holton Hill going to the Broncos at number 14. So I don't think it affects them at all because Holton Hill has a lot better tape than Marcus Berry did coming out of college. So I don't even think it's going to affect his stock at all. I still like him better than both Connor Williams and Malik Jefferson. So I'm actually open to the idea of taking a chance on Holton Hill here.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking was to go with a Holton Hill because I think Tony Brown is up too high. I wouldn't take Tony Brown until the 3rd or the 4th round if it was me.
So we're in agreement. Holton Hill will be the number 62 overall selection to the San Francisco 49ers.
Yep, Holton Hill. Clicking him off my board now, and then we'll go back to Joey's board. So just want to see what's out there. And for those of you wondering who Josh Jackson is, he's a corner out of Iowa. So
we are back. Round 3 is on the board. And round 3 ready to go. We have Tony Brown at cornerback is still available. Malik Jefferson still available.
What I'm thinking we do is we get Bryce Love here and we get a receiver at the next pick. Can we see what receivers and running backs are on the board before we make a decision? Because there's a lot of options. There are linebackers as well, but there's still we can still get Love or Chubb and still get premium value there. What's on the board at receiver? Because there are a few receivers I have in a different order. Sammy
Cobbs, Dante Brissett, Antonio Callaway.
Anthony Miller, who we both have a 1st-round grade on, is still on the board.
Anthony Miller's still there.
Still on the board. Gollop's still on the board. You know what? Let's take Bryce Love here, and then we'll debate which receiver we want at the next pick.
Because we still have at least 2
We have the
first round.
and a third rounder from the Bears, and that's it.
Well, we also have
I would go
first rounders.
I would go Chubb on this one because he seems to be back from his injury. He's a punishing style running back.
Yeah, Bryce Love is a lot of momentum right now, but he's only 5'10", so Kerr might end up being right about Chubb. Chubb
is a guy who's been coming on pretty strong. So, yeah, he's a guy that we're all keeping our eye on at the moment. And now, I know, Chris, you mentioned wide receiver. So, and I'll mention Deontay Burnett's still there. Anthony Miller is still there. And Auden Tate is still there.
A lot of these receivers are ranked too low, and I have a huge problem with Antonio Callaway being ranked ahead of some of these other receivers in this draft game that FanSpeak's doing, because I don't think
problem with Antonio Callaway being ranked ahead of anyone after what he pulled.
Yeah,
I mean,
Porter Gustin, Will Hernandez is better than him. Mike Gesicki is even better than him. Ejiofor.
I believe he's the one that's facing felony charges right now. So
yeah,
I mean, that's.
Can we go to the receivers and see how many receivers were ranked ahead of him? Because Auden Tate was ranked behind Antonio Callaway, and I just have a huge problem with that.
Auden Tate was ranked like 186, I believe.
He was ranked
184.
Yeah. So a lot of these receivers are better than.
Yeah, and Callaway wasn't that great to begin with.
Callaway's
fast,
the only reason Callaway's still in draft boards is because of his speed. He's a terrible route runner. He drops passes on tape. People love his speed, and there's more to receivers than just their speed.
Well, considering he's still on the board in round 3, then yes. I mean, I think the computer agrees with you.
I would still go Chubb here.
We took a running back, though. If we took another running back, we wouldn't have any receivers.
Oh, wait a minute. It did go. Okay. My screen was a little bit behind.
Oh, okay. Because right now we still have, because I agree with you, Kerm. If Chubb keeps the way he's going, he could end up as back in the first round discussion by the time the end of the season goes out. I'm leaning more toward
a-holes and take Simi Cobbs Jr. run pick before us.
Well, I'm looking at Anthony Miller.
Yeah, I'm looking at Miller as well, but the bottom line is you've got 2 receivers with slot receiver bodies in Pierre Garçon and Marquez Goodwin. So I kind of agree with Ryan's philosophy about how we should take a bigger target, but I have Anthony Miller as my number 2 overall receiver behind James Washington. So if you want to go Anthony Miller, I can't really complain about that. Yeah. Even though a bigger target like Gallup or Tate might be more beneficial in this situation.
Kerm, what's your thought? 30 seconds.
I would go Miller as well.
Yeah, we'll all go Miller. Let's go Miller here.
Okay.
My number 2 receiver. So, yeah, Chubb, Holton Hill, Bryce Love, Anthony Miller. It's interesting dynamic, to say the least.
It is, but that's a lot of talent right there.
I mean, all of these players are on the first round of my mock draft, so that speaks volumes.
It does. And stop it.
The 49ers have Josh Allen. Is that Josh Allen out of Wyoming or Josh Allen of Kentucky that fell to Buffalo? If that's Josh Allen out of Wyoming, bravo. If that's Josh Allen of Kentucky, 2 thumbs down.
Well, let's find out, shall we?
Yeah.
Okay. Let's keep going.
Josh Allen of Wyoming, 2 thumbs down.
Yeah. But What do we think right now?
Game yet, because we're waiting for which underclassmen are going to declare and which players are going to accept Senior Bowl invites. Those are the two variables that we're waiting for. Because I feel like a lot of this stuff, they're pressured into trying to get everything accurate, so they don't have to worry about everything later. And I'll credit FanSpeak for that, but I feel like a lot of this data comes out way too early in the process. It's all just speculation until we know who the Senior Bowl invites are and who the underclassmen are.
Yeah, and right now there have only been 2 invites and 2 accepts to the Senior Bowl. So
actually, I have a list of. There's actually more players than the ones you mentioned.
There are now. Because
yeah,
I know like a week ago when I checked, there were still only 2 yet.
Yeah, because there's still a month left in the season.
I have a updated board in scouting college football here.
We'll get to that here in a second. I don't want to get to it right now. We'll get to it in a second after we get done with this. But right now, we're going to assess the draft. Bradley Chubb, edge rusher, number 1 overall, North Carolina State. We have then we come down here to round 2. We don't pick until the 30th pick in round 2. We get Holton Hill, cornerback. Then out of Texas. Then we get down Bryce Love, 3 picks later at number 65 to out of Stanford. And finally, number 74 overall, Anthony Miller out of Memphis. So rounds, we ended up picking, as of right now,
Bradley
guys with first round potential.
Holton Hill is number 14 in my, or number 13 in my mock. Bryce Love is number 14 in my mock, and Anthony Miller, I think I had him falling to the Saints at number 19 or number 20 in my mock. So we ended up getting 4 top 20 players in my mock draft with these picks, which is well done.
Kerm, what do you think about this mock? How do you think the San Francisco 49ers would react to the situation?
I think it would be good. Good from them, because from what I read, they plugging up some huge holes.
Indeed.
That they did have.
I know the Bradley Chubb pick would receive criticism to the point where Mario Williams over Reggie Bush type criticism, but if you think about it, they lose Doomerville and Aaron Lynch to free agency, and why not take Bradley Chubb number 1 overall? If you're losing both of those players to free agency and you're sold on Solomon Thomas as more of a run stuffer than a pass rusher, why not take Chubb in that situation?
Yeah, it's one of those things that it's like last year they had Cleveland Browns had Emmanuel Ogbah, who was seen as one of the better pass rushers in that draft, and then they turned around and took Myles Garrett in the next year. It's like, hey, they went around. San Francisco took Thomas in the first round of this year's draft. Turn around and take Chubb. Solidify that defensive end position.
And the defensive tackle position with Buckner and Armstead's already been solidified. So now you've got your defensive line completely solidified, and you just have to keep the players around and build the offense around Garoppolo. That's really the best way to assess their outlook.
Yeah, and as we've seen with the top 5 rushing defenses in the NFL this year, all 5 teams have solidified defensive lines.
Defense is going to be scary good because you're going to have Chubb, you're going to have Armstead and Buckner in the middle at defensive tackle. You'll have Solomon Thomas at left end. You'll have Malcolm Smith back from a season-ending injury at right outside linebacker. You're going to have Reuben Foster playing the mic, and then you could use another outside linebacker on the strong side, but you can get a player in free agency like a veteran of that sort. And if that front seven's healthy, look out.
Yeah, and offensively, as we mentioned earlier, we've got Jimmy Garoppolo at quarterback now. So
good when healthy because Trent Brown finally took that next step at right tackle, but he got injured and was inactive for the Eagles game. Staley also got injured in that game, but Brown came back against the Cardinals and played well in that game. So they finally have stability at right tackle, and if Staley comes back from his injury, Garoppolo's going to have a lot of time in the pocket to make the right decisions. So I think that people are downplaying that to a degree.
And with Anthony Miller and Bryce Love added to the mix, that will make Jimmy Garoppolo's life much easier.
They already got a rookie tight end in George Kittle. Kittle ended up winning the starting job. That's why they traded Vance McDonald to the Steelers, because Kittle ended up beating him out for the starting job.
Yeah, and with Holton Hill to capitalize on the opportunities that Bradley Chubb would create. And
Thomas would create sometimes as well. That entire defensive line would create. Holton Hill capitalizing off those opportunities, that's big.
It definitely is. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. The 49ers Let's Play the first 3 rounds.
I think Darnold fell to like 30. Can we see where he fell to one more time?
Yeah,
Washington. Wow, he fell to Washington at 19. So they lose Kirk Cousins, they gain Darnold. That's interesting.
Yeah, very interesting.
How would you feel about that if you were a Washington fan?
I'd probably cry. So,
yeah.
So there you have it. The Let's Play of San Francisco 49ers draft. And now
I'll get to that Senior Bowl invite list really quickly. Prospects that have received Senior Bowl invites. Will Hernandez, he was my number 3 guard heading into the preseason. Now he's going to be number 4 because the Wisconsin guard impressed me on tape. He has gotten a Senior Bowl invite. And I have a 3rd-round grade on him, but Tony and Mark both have 2nd-round grades on Will Hernandez out of UTEP. He needs to go to this simply because he's not on a Power 5 school. He's on a mid-major school like UTEP. Next candidate, Austin Corbett, left tackle at Nevada. He has received a Senior Bowl invite. So we have him on the draft game as well. Tyrell Crosby. This is a guy who played right tackle as a true freshman, and during the first college football playoff, he actually held both DeMarcus Walker and Joey Bosa in check on tape. So he's a player who could rise up, because if you look back to that freshman tape, you look back at what he's done over the years, he can play offensive tackle or guard on either side. There's going to be a lot of intrigue with Tyrell Crosby leading up to this. Brandon Parker out of North Carolina, AT&T. He is a pure left tackle, but he could play on the right side if you need him to. I just see him as a current left tackle at the moment, but then you've got Timon Paris out of Stony Brook, the left tackle that Ryan really loved on tape at the beginning of the year out of Stony Brook, who NFL scouts were sort of mixed about. Charlie Campbell mentioned him briefly. But, yeah, I went with Parker. I like Parker's tape better than Paris's. And then you've got Ciron Neal out of Jacksonville State. He's a cornerback / safety. He is going to be in the Senior Bowl. Jaleel Scott, who 6'6", 200 pounds, just wowed me on tape last night. I watched his tape. I popped it in versus Arkansas. He made an Odell Beckham-like catch against Arizona State. Jaleel Scott, 6'6", 200. He is a player to keep an eye on. Marcus Davenport out of UTSA. We had Devin Davis on about UTSA, and I'm literally kicking myself in the teeth for not asking about Davenport, because Davenport, 11.5 tackles for a loss, 6.5 sacks, Senior Bowl invite, and Davenport is just dominating all across the board right now. And then you've got Murray State corner Demontre Wade and Michael Joseph, the Bouquet cornerback. He's a Division III cornerback, but he has 10 deflections this year, and those are the guys who've accepted Senior Bowl and who've received Senior Bowl invites. I don't know how many have accepted, but I'd imagine a good majority of those players, especially the small school players, are going to accept those invites to Mobile. And this is going to be really interesting because right now, all of the corners are small school corners. So that could shake up the draft, or it might tell us, hey, the top corners in the first 2 rounds, they already know who they are. So this is basically for rounds 3 through 7, who's going to step up to the plate. So this is really interesting.
Yeah, it is. And Next, we have our famous, world famous, it is spectacular, it is stupendous, our Week 10 picks for the NFL. Chris, as you are always the ringmaster in this, take it away.
Well, Week 10 predictions, we've got. You know what? I'll X out a screen share and censor my camera. I don't need that anymore. But yeah. Oh, is it already censored? Awesome. So camera's already turned off. Fantastic. So
Yep.
Week 10 picks. We've got the first game, Arizona and Seattle. This game currently is in Arizona, and we even link the Evolution Network to because we link a lot of different things on the Thursday night game, but Seattle does not have to worry about Carson Palmer or David Johnson. I mean, Seattle might not light it up offensively, but they're going to do enough to frustrate this offense without Palmer or Johnson. Here's an interesting stat. I'm not sure if it's up on Walter Cherepinski's pick page, but Seattle is 10-0 coming off of losses dating back to 2015 during the regular season. So they are 10-0 coming off of losses dating back to 2015 during the regular season. So that is a very interesting stat, and Seattle's favored by 5.5. I'm going to go 17-6, say this is a low-scoring game. The over-under is 42. They're 5.5-point favorites. I think Seattle wins and covers, but it's a very low-scoring game. 17-6, Seattle.
Yeah, I have Seattle winning this one.
Yeah.
And also covering the spread.
Yeah, and you guys have to remember, right now, Russell Wilson leads the team in yards passing, 2,305, touchdowns, 17, as well as carries with 46 carries, 271 yards, 5.9-yard average, and a touchdown
Eddie
there.
Lacy has been very stagnant at running back, which is why it feels like Russell Wilson had to carry this team as both a quarterback and as a rusher.
And they're averaging 378 yards a game against the Cardinals, 337, and 274 passing yards against the Cardinals, 261.
I
Rushing
love
yards,
how
103
NFL Morning
to
Football mentioned how Drew Stanton is like 6-4 in his career, and he's 5-0 in his last 5 starts. I love how they're mentioning that. That's so adorable to the point where I'm just laughing hysterically because Drew Stanton is not going to beat this Legion of Boom, and I think Seattle's going to do enough to win.
Yeah, and as I was saying, rushing yards per game, 103 for Seattle and 76 for Arizona. So in every statistical category with quarterbacks, with running backs, well, everything, Arizona wins with the running back with Adrian Peterson. But other than that, the quarterback and wide receivers, it's easily Seattle's game offensively, and I think Seattle wins.
All right, what's the next game? Are we going off the Packers-Bears game, or do you have another game in mind?
I don't know. You're the one that's going down through the scores.
Well, I've got a predictions list on my site, and the first Sunday afternoon game I have is Packers-Bears on Draft Utopia. And I have the Bears winning this game. They're 4.5-point favorites. Brett Hundley struggled even with the bye week. What's even worse is right tackle Brian Bulaga tore his ACL, and they released Martellus Bennett yesterday. They actually lose $3 million in cap space by releasing him. So water under the bridge, and Packers losing cap money, water under the bridge. Bears can easily get 100 rushing yards on Green Bay. A lot of people are predicting a 30-10 blowout for Chicago. According to oddshark.com, they have Chicago projected as a team scoring 30 and the Packers scoring 10. The Bears are not going to score 30 points on the Packers. However, I do believe they have enough talent to get at least 20 points on the Packers. So, yeah, and I thought Bennett was inactive, but they ended up releasing him. So I'm going to say that the Bears win this game 20-7, And the Bears cover the spread, but we get the under here, and we get a defensive game. The Bears, like Seattle, is a lock on our site as well, so that's something to take into account as well.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go Bears as well. Green Bay's is not the same with Aaron Rodgers hurt.
As much as I hate to say it, I'm going to have to go Chicago as well. As bad as they can be, Green Bay without Aaron Rodgers is just as bad.
Yeah. Plus, the Packers lead the all-time rivalry now, 94, 93, and 1. And if the Bears win, the rivalry remains tied heading into next season, too. So there's a chip on the Chicago shoulder and a reason for them to win this thing.
Indeed.
Because the NFL wants this rivalry to remain split because that will get the rivalry better ratings.
Indeed.
All right, next up we have Joey's Cleveland Browns facing the Detroit Lions in Detroit. The last time the Browns went to Ford Field, I believe it was Matthew Stafford's rookie year on the team that was after the Lions went 0-16. And this was Matthew Stafford's first win. It was the win that got him confidence. It was the win that elevated his career. And this was I think the Lions were winless at that point. And the Browns had like 2 or 3 wins that year. And then Stafford got his first career win, and then that's what elevated his confidence. The second year he looked a lot better, but he had that injury. So because of that injury, he wasn't really able to take off until his 3rd year in the NFL. And, yeah, you look at Detroit and Cleveland here. I'm going to say that the fact that Cleveland does not have Joe Thomas, Kaiser doesn't have the weapons, and I'm not sure the Browns have the patience to keep developing him, because you look at the Browns, they can opt out of Kaiser's contract without losing cap money as early as 2019. So that is definitely something to take into consideration. Every other QB would have to wait until 2020. The Browns can opt out in 2019 if Kaiser does not make progress next year, and they would still save like $400,000, which isn't a lot, but they would save money, and they have the luxury to do that. Ons is going to get pressure on Kaiser. Stafford's going to have a field day. Detroit enters as a 12-point favorite. The 3rd game on our site, and 3 for 3 with locks. We have 8 or 9 locks this week. This is the 3rd one, and we all have the Lions winning. So far, we had no disagreements, no devil's advocate, all locks so far on both Draft Utopia and the Evolution Network.
Well, the thing I've got here is let's look a little bit deeper. The Detroit Lions are horrendous in the red zone. The Cleveland Browns have an absolutely astounding red zone. The Lions are, when it comes to rushing yards per game, are averaging 79 rushing yards per game. The Browns are number 4 in the NFL in rush defense. The big thing right now is the Browns' defense is not the problem.
The secondary,
and that fits
and
the
Stafford's a top 5 quarterback. So even if the Browns' run defense and their pass rush thrives, that won't be enough.
Well, I'm not done yet. The big issue with the Browns right now is the fact that 2 issues. One, the offense, which they're averaging 14.9 points a game, where the Lions are averaging 25. And then the points allowed, the Browns are averaging 25, mostly due to they get tired in the end, by the end of the game, where the Lions are averaging 23. At the same time, 3rd down conversions, the Browns are actually better on 3rd down, or against 3rd down, than the Lions are actually better than Browns on 3rd down, 36.1% to 39%. And so the Browns are not good on
third down to begin with at
Neither
29%.
The Lions did not get a third down conversion, but this is interesting here. OddsShark has the Lions winning 30.6 to 13.5. So we'll assume that's a 31-14 score, but they also believe that the Browns will have more success on third downs than the Lions. They're thinking 4 for 7 on third downs. They're thinking 6 for 10 on third downs for Detroit. So the third down conversions could be pretty even. And
yeah, that's actually surprising because I would think the exact opposite, because right now what you're having, I do think Deshaun Kaiser avoids turnovers for the second straight game, but I do not think that the Browns' offensive woes are going to just abate into thin air. So I'm going to say that Detroit wins this game, but the Browns' defense keeps them in it for at least the first half.
What's interesting is the over-under on this game is 44 points. I like Detroit to win 30-10 with the under, but 68% of the public is betting on the over, whereas 65% is betting on the over, 35% is betting on the under, like me. So I'm going to say it's the under, and we get more of a defensive game rather than both teams combining for 44 points. I don't think we'll see that happening.
Yeah, I think this is going to be a lower scoring matchup simply because neither team's good on third down. Neither team is good in the red zone. Neither team's really good where it counts. So I want to say Detroit wins in a low-scoring match.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with the Lions as well on this one.
That leads us to game number 4 here. And game number 4 is Pittsburgh and the Colts. So we've opened this thing up with 3 consecutive locks on both Draft Utopia and the Evolution Network. Look, the Colts. Someone initially picked the Colts, but he switched his pick to the Steelers. And no, Joe, you don't get to make jokes about how drunk he got when he made the pick. Pittsburgh's going to demolish the Colts, though. Le'Veon Bell, Antonio Brown, Juju Smith-Schuster, Martavis Bryant. Vonta Davis is out for the Colts. They may even place him on injured reserve with Luck, Malik Hooker. And Pittsburgh just has so much going for them offensively. Not only did they reactivate Martavis Bryant, Vonta Davis, Colts' best corner, has been ruled inactive. And in order for them to shut down this offense, they would need Davis, they would need Rashawn Nelson, and Quincy Wilson to all step up. But they only have 2 of those corners. They don't have Davis, and the Steelers just reactivated Bryant. So Pittsburgh is going to demolish Indianapolis for that reason. Indianapolis did well executing offensively, but how are they going to build on that against a much tougher pass rush? I know Costanzo played well versus Clowney last week, and he's playing for his contract, but you've got Watt and Dupree and Harrison and Chickalo for depth. Pittsburgh has the advantage here, but I'm actually going to go with the over. The over-under is 44.5. I'm going to take the over here and say Pittsburgh wins this 38-23. Colts offense executes like they did last week and actually puts them a fight, but Pittsburgh just has too much firepower on the offensive side of the ball, and they win this thing by a couple of touchdowns. I'm going to 15-point victory, 38-23.
Yeah, and I'm going on this. I'm going to go, even though Le'Veon Bell is having a down year, only averaging 9.3 yards a game, Ben Roethlisberger's having a down year, he only has 10 touchdowns. I say Pittsburgh wins. And remember, Indianapolis just cut Vontae Davis.
I thought he was ruled out on injured reserve. They cut him like they actually released
him. They cut him. Yeah, and he's going to have surgery now anyway, so.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go with Pittsburgh as well.
We're representing the people of Pittsburgh, not Indianapolis. Moving on. We have the Los Angeles Chargers and the Jaguars. We've opened this show up with 4 consecutive locks from Draft Utopia and the Evolution Network, but now we're on to Jacksonville here. The Chargers got Denzel Perriman back, making their entire front 7 fully healthy. This team has been completely healthy on offense outside of losing Forrest Lamp at the beginning of the season. The Chargers have the front seven to stop Leonard Fournette, who's coming back. But Jacksonville is my pick because the Chargers have a ton of injuries on secondary. While I have more confidence in Rivers as a quarterback avoiding turnovers, I also have more confidence in Jacksonville's defense to step up and frustrate Rivers than I do in this Chargers secondary. I know the Chargers have a great front seven, but the issue with the Chargers is their secondary. And I don't think their secondary is going to pick apart Jacksonville's receivers or Bortles. And if Bortles keeps his cool, I think Jacksonville can do just enough to win this game. And the Jaguars are a 4-point favorite. I actually have them winning by 2 touchdowns, 28-14, but I have reconsidered the possibility of giving the Chargers maybe one more touchdown. But that Jacksonville defense has just been so potent that I think they limit the Chargers to 2 touchdowns, and they actually win by 2 touchdowns just because of how suspect the Chargers secondary is. And that's my reasoning for why I picked the Jaguars, along with the fact that it's a home game. This was not a lock of the week. One person out of 5 picked the Chargers to win.
Yep. Leonard Fournette is back this week, so that basically puts the Jaguars firmly in the driver's seats for this game.
Yeah, I'm going to have to go Jaguars as well.
So Jaguars is a draft evolution lock of the week, but not a draft utopia lock of the week. And we've had 5 consecutive draft evolution locks of the week now, which could be a record. Now, moving on, we have the Saints and the Bills. I know we're going to get disagreements on this one. This is easily the toughest game for me to pick. New Orleans is red hot on a 6-game winning streak. At the same time, I believe the Buffalo Bills actually have the tools to outplay them. Buffalo is 4-0 in home games this year. I think Tyrod Taylor's going to have a big game. I also think LaShawn McCoy is going to get 100 rushing yards while left tackle Cordy Glenn, center Eric Wood pave the way for this offense. I even think Deion Dawkins could have a big game as well. The Saints are 2.5-point favorites, but I have Buffalo winning, and I have the over-under this game is 46 points. I have Buffalo winning by a point, 24-23, and I have them winning on a game-winning field goal by Hauschka as time runs out, with Buffalo getting the 100 rushing yards from McCoy, with them winning the time of possession 32-28, with them getting just about as many third-down conversions as the Saints. So I think it's going to be a really close game and a really exciting game. But I'm actually going to take the Bills over the Saints. And yes, 3 out of 5 people on Draft Utopia took the Bills. 2 people took the Saints, though, including the leader in the Pick'em pool. They took the Saints this week.
Well, here's the thing. There are 2 points I'd like to make. One, New Orleans has won 4 consecutive games, I believe it is.
No, it's 6. I made that point already. I talked about it.
And
they started 0-2, and they won 6 consecutive games since the loss to the Patriots. That was my very first point.
Oh, well, I'm sorry. And the second for Buffalo is that 2 weeks ago, I was crumpling their chances at the playoffs. This week, I've got 2 words for you. That's Kelvin Benjamin. Okay. The difference that he can make with that offense is potentially staggering.
Benjamin got humiliated by Marshawn Lattimore in that Week 3 contest where Carolina lost at home to the Saints. Now it's payback time.
And I'm picking Buffalo with the upset simply because they now have a receiver that can make people stop, make defenses stop just to them.
My crystal ball is telling me Kerm will pick the Saints.
And your crystal ball is correct.
Yep. I do it. I'm like a mind reader. I can tell people I'm psychic, Joey, and they'll believe me. All right, moving on. We've got the Jets and the Buccaneers in Tampa Bay. Josh McCown has played excellent football as of late. Over 70.4 completion percentage. The New York can do more than enough to win this game, especially when you consider that Jameis Winston is being benched for a couple of weeks, along with the fact that Mike Evans got suspended for this game. Tampa Bay doesn't have their star players. Ryan Fitzpatrick may be motivated for revenge because Ryan Fitzpatrick played for the Jets last year, and that's really the only argument you can make for the Buccaneers winning. So, and this other thing is Fitzpatrick had more passing yards last week than Winston. I'm going to say the Jets win this game 21-10. The over-under is 41.5. It should be at like 39 or something lower. But the thing is, 3 out of 5 people on Draft Utopia picked the Buccaneers. Even though I went with the Jets, only one other person besides me picked the Jets this week. So that's really interesting because Tampa Bay is the home team, and they don't have Winston or Evans, yet 3 out of 5 people are picking them to beat the Jets. And the Jets are favored, according to Vegas.
Kerm, what you got?
I've got the Jets in this one. I'm going to go with the Chris. I'm going to go Jets with Winston and Evans both they being out.
Yeah, I'm of the same thinking with this. There is almost 3/4 of your offense out. I mean, the defense has been a disappointment this year, so I'm going to go with the Jets.
Bay's offensive tackles have allowed Winston to get hit too many times, and Tampa Bay is last in the NFL in sacks per game with 1 and total sacks with 8. You can't win playing football like that, Joey. You just can't.
No, you can't.
That's why Tampa Bay's pass defense is 32nd on DraftKings.
I don't know. I don't do DraftKings, so I can't tell you.
I'm just pointing it out. We have a writer that does DraftKings. I was just pointing out that statistic briefly. Moving on to the nation's capital, we have the Vikings heading to Washington, and Minnesota's coming off a bye week. Teddy Bridgewater will be activated this week, but they're going to start Keenum. And then with Washington, Minnesota has a lethal defense, but Washington faced a much more lethal defense on the road in Seattle. And Minnesota enters as a 1.5-point favorite. I'm going to do something extremely bold to the point where you're going to want to have me drug tested. And I'm going to pick the Washington Redskins to win not by 1, not by 2, but by 3 touchdowns, 31-10. And this kind of infraction is going to make you want to drug test me.
Now, what that does is going to make me want to start Teddy Bridgewater. You see, Sam Bradford got put on the IR with Bridgewater being activated. So that tells me that Bradford was only on the
Bridgewater right away.
I don't know. But that only tells me that Bradford was on the roster and not on the IR simply as an emergency quarterback until Bridgewater got back.
I
so now Bridgewater's back. I say Bridgewater will play at some point during this game, but Washington still wins.
I'm looking at Minnesota's schedule briefly here to determine when Bridgewater will be activated. They've got the Rams. Their next 3 opponents are Washington on the road, the Rams at home, Keenum versus Goff headline, and then the Lions on Thanksgiving. I'm going to say that at some point, maybe week 15 or week 14, he gets either activated versus the Falcons or the Panthers. He might get activated versus the Bengals, and then it'd be Bridgewater versus the Packers in week 16. That way, if Rodgers doesn't come back from his injury, at least Bridgewater's in the lineup. And then if Bridgewater takes the Vikings to the playoffs, like I could see that happening where the Vikings only win 1 game against the Rams at home with Keenum, and then they go into this 3-game losing streak. Then they activate Bridgewater for weeks 15 through 17, and they win the division thanks to Bridgewater. I could see that. I could see it playing out like that, Joey.
Well, I heard a report that Bridgewater was already activated.
He already was activated, but are they going to start him? Because all the people in the media are saying they're going to start Keenum. And I think they're going to start Keenum.
They are going to start Keenum, but I believe Bridgewater starts in the second half of this game. I believe he comes out of the tunnel as the starter. So,
in order for that to happen, Keenum would have to throw like 3 picks and just have an awful first half.
It's possible. So,
as much as I'd like to see Bridgewater step in like Bobby Boucher or Shane Falco, I just don't think it's going to happen.
Yes, it will. Kerm, tell him it'll happen.
I'm not sure if it'll happen or not, but I think I'm gonna have to go with the go with the Redskins squeaking by on this one.
Yes, so we've only had one game that wasn't a lock of the week on Draft Evolution. That was the Saints game against the Bills game, where I used my crystal ball to predict what Kerm would do. Moving on to Cincinnati and Tennessee. This game is in Tennessee. I believe it was the third Draft Utopia lock of the week here. And I have the Titans winning this one 28-10. And, I mean, Tennessee's got the offensive tackles. They've got the pass rush. Mariota's got Corey Davis and Delaney Walker back. Why should I pick the Bengals? Feel free to sell me on why I should pick the Bengals, but I'm just going to cross my arms in disapproval knowing that the Titans got this.
Kerm, why should he pick the Bengals?
I don't know because I'm going Titans as well.
Yeah, I don't see a reason why anybody should pick the Bengals under any circumstances at this point.
Unless Andy Dalton's hair gets you really drunk and persuades you into picking the Bengals.
No.
That's not happening. So that's our lock of the that's our third lock of the week, fifth lock of the week on Draft Utopia, and I think it's like 7 or 8 locks on the Evolution Network. Okay, moving on though, Rams-Texans. I believe this is the 9th game of the week. We've had 7 locks on the Evolution Network and 5 on my site.
Rams.
I got the Rams winning this one. Hopkins would have to have a field day versus Trumaine Johnson. Lamar Miller also has to help with time of possession in order for the Texans to win because Tom Savage is going up against a Rams team that is coming off a huge win. Gurley
This is going to be a savage beatdown of Houston.
7 without Watt, without Merciless, without Brian Cushing. I think Todd Gurley just goes off in this game. I think Jared Goff even builds on last week's momentum. Back in the preseason,
this is going to be a savage beatdown of.
I had the Rams winning 28-10.
Rams are going to win
38-10 now, and this is another lock of the week.
I've got Rams as well.
Everybody's got the Rams. Moving on.
All right. So we're all taking the Rams. Excellent. That's 6 locks, 9 locks. All right, Dallas, Atlanta. This is actually a game I was torn on because I have Dallas winning 31-28 at the moment, but there's a lot of variables that come into play. Des Bryant and Tyron Smith didn't practice after Wednesday. If neither one of these guys plays and if Elliott gets suspended on top of that, then Atlanta will have no problems on Sunday. I'm leaning Dallas right now, but there could be some major changes or breaking news in the making with the Elliott trial or whatever. So stay tuned for that. The trial is at the top of the hour at 2 p.m. Eastern. So the Ezekiel Elliott Judge Judy case will be on at 2 p.m. Yes, Judge Judy's going into work early today to do the Ezekiel Elliott trial. I went there.
No. Either way, I think Dallas wins. I think Dak Prescott has his best game of the year in Elliott's absence. So, and if Elliott
I think
plays,
I'm gonna go Dallas.
Yep, Dallas is another lock of the week on the Evolution Network. So I believe that's 9 out of 10 games on the Evolution Network that are locks. It was completely split decision on our site. Giants and 49ers. This game, I think this was the first time a majority of our writers actually picked the 49ers to win a game in like 3 years. But New York heads to San Francisco. Janoris Jenkins has been activated from the roster. And I've gotten sources from Brian Bayless, my NBA writer, who is a huge Giants fan. He is telling me that if the New York Giants lose this game, Ben McAdoo will be fired. And they will bring in Spagnuolo as the interim head coach for that game if they lose this to the 49ers. So keep an eye out for that news because that could be big news as well heading into this week. I mean, McAdoo, if the 49ers get their first win against the Giants, Ben McAdoo is most likely on his way out in San Francisco. So keep an eye on that. That could be a pretty big storyline that gets built up.
Yeah, this is one of those games that so far this year, it's the Browns games I said, I really wouldn't want to watch. But this one just has disaster. So bad, it's going to be good written all over. Just absolute disaster. So
If they started Garoppolo over Bethard, I'd actually consider taking the 49ers. But they're starting Bethard instead of Garoppolo. So the 49ers have to be punished for that. They lose. And the mustache man who looks like Wario, Ben McAdoo, gets to keep his job for another week.
Kerm, what's your take on this train wreck or disaster?
I'm going to go the Giants.
Okay, I'm going to go with, this is the first time in history anybody's probably ever done this. I'm going to go with a tie.
Oh.
I'm going to say both of these teams either get shut out or only score a field goal.
Do you think we get a 6-6 tie like the Cardinals-Seattle game last year?
Well, no, he was saying a 3-3 tie.
You're telling me Eli is not going to throw a touchdown on this abysmal 49ers secondary. I've got the Giants winning this 27-7. I mean, guys like Sterling Shepard and Roger Lewis can do enough to get by the scrub zone San Francisco secondary. It's not like the 49ers pass rush is going to screw Eli up and it's this game nobody's going to score. It's not going to be that brutal.
It's Eli Manning. There's a chance it's that brutal.
Hey, what's the
next game is the Sunday night game. It's my Patriots. They head to Denver to face Ryan Romero's Broncos after his team gave up 51 points to the Eagles. So I think Belichick's going to have his game plan ready. I mean, Belichick was misleading people. He basically said in the press conference this week that Brock Osweiler's a good quarterback, and that's only because he got his first career win versus the Patriots, and the defense won that game for them. But he basically said Brock Osweiler's a very good quarterback. He's very mobile. He can be a dual threat. It's like you going off. It's like you having a press conference after a night at Dos Gatos. It was just absolutely. But if he says Osweiler is terrible or if he sucks, that's going to motivate the Broncos. And Belichick psychologically knows that. And he doesn't want his players to get lazy, which is the other reason he's praising Osweiler, even though he knows non-verbally that he sucks.
Well, let's put it this way. After rendering you speechless with that last prediction I made, literally for about 30 seconds, there wasn't a sound that went over this thing. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take New England because I made Ryan cry the other day when he was talking about nothing changed with Osweiler throwing interceptions, and I had to remind him he did get cut by the Browns. I mean, and you see what that quarterbacking situation. Yeah, and you see what that quarterbacking situation is like.
And Belichick saying he's a good quarterback. It's like he's not a good quarterback. He's just being polite so his team doesn't get lazy. It's a psychological tactic. New England knows what they're doing.
Bill Belichick's like Ole Anderson. There was a booking decision back in World Championship Wrestling when Ole Anderson had the book years ago. I forget what it was. But Ric Flair described it as, you know, I don't know what Ole was thinking when he booked that. Yeah, it must have been high, but Ole doesn't get high. So it's like Bill Belichick saying Osweiler's a good quarterback. He must have been high, except for Bill Belichick doesn't get high, so we don't know what he's thinking. So, I mean, Bill Belichick's kind of like the Ole Anderson of the NFL. And so
I have the Patriots winning 35-7, but I think the reason he said Osweiler's good is because that first start he had where he beat the Patriots, that was due to the defense, not Osweiler, but still, he wants to give him credit for that and be a good sport.
Yeah. I'm going to go Patriots as well.
35-7 is my final score. We beat the Broncos by 4 touchdowns, and it gets so bad that Brent Henderson, the guy who makes the Crying Jordan memes, actually puts a meme on Ryan's face. And then we get to our Monday night game, Dolphins and Panthers. I'm not even going to try to think of something for the Monday night theme song. I'm not even sure Hank Williams can think of something with such a brutal game on place. Will Cutler get high or will Newton dab? This game will be a meat grinder and a slab. Okay, Panthers
Because I
win
got high. Because I
17-7,
got high.
and
Because I got
Jay
high.
Cutler gets so high that he steals Cam Newton's briefcase of money at Auburn. But the Panthers win this 17-7 and barely cover the spread. It's the worst Monday night game of the year, and Cutler gets so high that he actually retrieves the briefcase of money that Cam Newton had at Auburn. That's how high Cutler gets.
Well, just for reference, kids, don't get high. We're not doing offensive anything here. So, just disclaimer, nothing to see here.
We're not responsible if you get high, and we don't encourage you to do it. That's basically what Joey's trying to say.
Chris, don't encourage them.
I'm not encouraging them. I'm making jokes about how Jay Cutler gets high all the time.
No, he doesn't get high all the time. It's not legal in Florida. Kids always follow the law. And always take Carolina because Miami's just not that good. So
Yeah, I'm going to have to take the Panthers as well.
And always dab in front of Dolphins fans, especially after this game.
No, you never dab, period.
I agree. You don't dab, period.
Yeah.
I just think
Whoever invented dabbing
injury because I'm a Patriots fan and I just feel like that's necessary, even though it's not. 17-7 Carolina wins.
No dabbing. Whoever invented dabbing needs smacked. It's like, no, just don't do it, kids.
Is dabbing worse than any of the things Tebow did?
No, Tebowing is still pretty bad.
The teams on bye weeks in Week 10 are the Chiefs, the Eagles, the Raiders, and the Ravens. We used to do a segment on our site called Bye 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 where we did brief outlooks of the teams during bye weeks. But, yeah, that's not necessary.
We always
I
knew
think
Chris
the
was into
49ers
boy
are going to finish
bands.
1-15. They'll win a game in a few weeks, but they're not going to win on Sunday. And the Browns, they're going 0-16. That prophecy that Cal Pope made last year is going to carry over into this year, where he said the Browns would go 0-16. So they've lost 25 consecutive games on Sundays. And that streak could continue into next season if they beat the Ravens or the Bears on Christmas Eve, which is going to be on a Saturday. So if they beat Trubisky on Christmas Eve, then they'd win on Saturday once again, and their losing streak on Sundays would continue into next season.
Okay, Chris, your love of boy bands notwithstanding, and folks, with the Monday night game being predicted and everything else that's going on around here, this is the end of our podcast for today.
Football playoff updated rankings really quickly. Georgia, Alabama. I don't think anything changed. I think Oklahoma is still at number 5, and Wisconsin moved up to 6 instead of Ohio State. But I don't think
that's the reason that it wasn't mentioned, because nothing changed. And if nothing changes, then there's no news.
Wisconsin number 6 is news.
Wisconsin's not in the top 4, so it's not news. So for Chris Ransom and Andrew Kermish, if you like this video, like, share, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And we're going to go ahead and give a special shout out here to this RC guy who commented last week on the show. Thank you for commenting. And for everybody out there, like, share, subscribe, and just support the channel any way you can, whether you like us, hate us, want Chris to punch himself in the face, however you want to go, just leave us a message, support the channel. And for Chris Ransom of Draft Utopia, for Andrew Kermish, I am Joseph Potter, and stay tuned to our Twitter accounts as we will have updates on the Ezekiel Elliott situation. So have a good day and take care.